Good evening, Mr. Smarty Britches. I don't even know if this is working. That was going to be my introduction, with something to do with Mr. Smarty Britches, and I can't even get the computer to work right. My mouse is going all over the screen. I try to click one place and it goes somewhere else. But we're going to play a game I was going to call Smarty Britches. Anybody ever use that term? I think that is a southern version of saying Smarty Pants, if I'm not mistaken. And if you will, if you're on Facebook or on YouTube, will you give me a quick hello in the chat? Just let me know you're there. Let me know it's working. As I mentioned, I'm having challenges. And all right, hi Carol. Good evening. Thanks for letting me know you're here. Good evening, Miss Judy. All right. So at least people are on, and hopefully you can hear me. And hopefully you can see me. You might have saw me earlier trying to sneak a bite of a potato chip as I was trying to do something on the computer, and then boom, everything kind of went out of haywire. So anyway, welcome to Sunday Funday. We're going to be looking at the our series in Proverbs that I introduced last week. Kind of gave you a little teaser there, and so I'm just going to jump right on into the game and. Calling it Mr. Smarty Pants. We'll talk about why here in a moment. But I looked up some questions. I was trying to find things. I will. Good evening. Make sure I get over here where I can see comments again. I was looking up questions, trying to find things that would be difficult to answer. And so I have some, at least what Reader's Digest thought was some really hard questions. And there's some pretty smart people there. So I thought that'd be kind of fun to go with some of the questions that they had. It may take me a moment to be able to change this. All right, here we go. All right. So looks like I got this working. All right, so our first question of the night. I'm going to jump right in. Try to beat the lag here, get going before I start having too much lag and have to wait for answers. But some of these have multiple choice, some of them don't. And give me your best answers. But first question is, what is the only U.S. state that only borders one other state? What's the only U.S. state that only borders one other state? Anybody know what that is? To help you out, I narrowed it down to 4. So you can choose one of those 4. Okay, I must have a little bit of lag. I wasn't thinking I did. Okay, now I'm seeing answers. All right. So Will's guessing Maine. And again, you can put in the letter, the word, whichever one. It may take me a while to go back and forth. Christy's guessing maybe. Miss Judy's going to go with Maine as well. All right, so we're starting to see some consistency here. Yeah, I thought that's what was happening, Christy, when you said maybe. I thought it was Maine that auto-corrected to maybe, but I figured maybe you're just going to ignore me. Sometimes I ask Christy questions and she answers a totally different question anyway, so I never know for sure. Carol said maybe Washington. All right. Correct answer is Maine, and I'll show a map here. Washington borders 2 states, Idaho and Oregon. Florida borders 2 states, Alabama and Georgia. Ooh, got to get me out of the way here. Hang on a second. This isn't. I didn't think about that when I put that slide together, did I? Uh-oh. All right. All right. Yeah. Ooh, still kind of small to see, but Maine only borders New Hampshire. So it also has the distinction of being the only state with a 1-syllable name. So if you're into random trivia questions, Maine is a unique state in that way. It only borders 1 state, and it only has 1 syllable. Both of those make it unique. I know there's probably, if you're like me, there are probably some of you out there looking at some of these words going, Montana, okay, Georgia, yeah, and trying to test them all. Ohio. Yep, they're all multiple syllables except for Maine. So, all right, let me see if I can change the slide here without messing something up. All right. Name the number. Here's a math question for you. I'm going to test your math ability. We're going with all kinds of knowledge tonight. Um, Name the number that is 3 more than 1/5 of 1/10 of 1/2 of 5,000. Got any math whizzes among us? Looking for the number that is 3 more than 1/5 of 1/10 of 1/2 of 5,000. And there's either two things happening out there on the other side of this live stream. Either there's people sitting there going like this, or they're going, I'm not even going to try that. And if you're one of those, it's like, I'm not even going to try that, that's fine as well. You can let me know. Sometimes my brain just hurts too much to do math. So it all depends on how I feel at the moment. All right, Will's already got his answer in. Will is one of those. I was expecting, Will, you might jump right on that challenge to solve that one. Miss Judy's going with 53 as well. All right, so it looks like people either didn't do it or already have the answer, and you are correct. 53 is the correct answer. If you work backwards on that one, half of 5,000 is 2,500. 1/10 of that is 250. And 1/5 of that is 50, and then the 3 more than that is 53. So, all right, good job. We got some people that are really thinking. I got to admit, first time I looked at that question, I'm like, oh, do I even feel like doing that question? Because it makes you think. But all right, we got a lot of smarty pants in here. Carol says her brain exploded just trying to do it. Yes, it's that point in the day for me as well. All right, next question. Here's a pattern. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, blank 34. What is the missing number? I know you see these all the time on social media and different places. Can you figure out what number should go in that blank? We'll make a good point there. If you wanted to know a little bit more, have some extra trivia knowledge there. When we did that math, you could have done the division in any order you wanted to. That's a good point there. So if you were more comfortable doing the 1/5 of it first, you could have done that, then the 1/10, then the half. Nice point there. I like that. All right, Miss Judy says the answer to this blank number is 21. Anybody else going to go with an answer here? All right, Christy's going in 21 as well. Looks like that's probably going to be a consensus. You would be correct. That is 21. Obviously, it's just adding the 2 numbers before it. So 1 doesn't have anything but 1. Then 2 is the product of 1 and 1 makes 2. 1 and 2 makes 3. 2 and 3 makes 5. 5 and 8 makes 13. 8 and 13 make 21. And 13 and 21 make 34. All right, good job. See, these aren't anywhere near as hard as some of the other questions I've had previously, are they? And these are the ones that were listed under Genius Test or something of that nature. All right. Well, matches some. I really gravitated to a lot of the Alabama State questions here. All right, see the other answers coming in there. I got a little bit of a lag here. So I really gravitated to some of the state questions. I found a lot of those interesting. But what is the only U.S. state that has a Spanish motto? Well, I guess that's a lot of bonus questions there. Do you even know some of the state mottos? And if you know a random state motto, feel free to put it in there and share that knowledge with us if you already know a state motto from somewhere else. But the main question is, what's the only U.S. state with a Spanish motto? Is it Idaho, California, Montana, or Arizona? Miss Judy's going with Montana. Facebook answers are coming back a little slower at the moment. Usually it's the other way around. Usually my YouTube answers come in slower than Facebook, but tonight they went the other way. That's okay. I'm just glad everybody's here. All right. I'm going to go ahead and give the answer. I'm sure people have already typed their answer in, and I just can't see it yet. But, oh, there they go. All right, so see, Christy's got hers in. She's saying Montana as well. All right, so did you guys know that, or did you look it up? That's the question. I obviously had to look it up. Montana's the motto is on their flag. That's a picture of the Montana flag. It says Oro y Plata, which I am told is gold and silver. Which to me doesn't sound like a motto, but you know, nobody asked me, I guess. But that is Montana. Christy phoned a friend. Google. All right. So that's why the answer is taking a little bit longer to come in on the Facebook side. Everybody was, hey Siri. Yep, but Montana is the only state with a Spanish motto. Miss Judy said she looked it up too. Okay, so everybody's doing the same thing on that one. Gold and silver is the motto for Montana. It's Oro y Plata. And that's probably not a very good pronunciation on my part, but close as I can get. All right. Speaking of states, what is the only U.S. state whose name ends with 3 consecutive vowels? Yeah, what's the only U.S. state whose name ends with 3 consecutive vowels? This is when I really wish we were playing this game right there in the sanctuary, because I could see everybody kind of sitting there and going through all the states in their mind, trying to figure out which one has 3 vowels at the end. And there'd also be a couple people out there with their phones typing in, like Christy. I don't see Alicia on, but she would be one of those as well. So what's the only U.S. state whose name ends with 3 consecutive vowels? I ought to do this one quick, just like time limit. Like, sorry, time's up. There's a lot of states to go through. I guess if I give you long enough, you get through all of them, you would eventually get to it. Anybody got that yet? All right, I'm going to go ahead and give the answer. I know some people probably have already put some in. I'm not seeing them yet. The only state whose name ends with 3 consecutive vowels. Ooh, it came up just as I did it. Hawaii. All right, Carol and Will both had Hawaii. Just as I was, at least it showed up for me. Just as I was putting that up there. So yeah, it ends in A-I-I. Little bonus question. Only one other state actually has 3 consecutive vowels in the name. Does anybody know what state that is? There are only 2 states that have 3 consecutive vowels. Hawaii is the one that has them at the end. Another state has 3 consecutive vowels elsewhere in the word. Anybody know what that one is? Louisiana. The L-O-U-I-S-I-A-N-A. So Louisiana and Hawaii have that distinction. All right. Speaking of letters and names of U.S. states, what's the only letter in our alphabet that is not in any U.S. state name? And you're welcome to make multiple guesses here if you want to. I'll let you know once somebody hits it. But what's the only, out of 26 letters in our alphabet, only one? All right, I see Miss Judy said Hawaii as well. So I got a little lag there on my Google messages coming in to where I can see them. Out of 26 letters in the alphabet, what's the only one that is not found in any U.S. state name? It's funny because tonight my internet connection thing shows green, so I'm expecting that I have a pretty good connection, but it's still a little bit laggy. I don't know why. I always count on that to tell me when it's going well and when it's not, but tonight it's a little bit laggy coming. I can tell because answers will come up just after I've gotten past it, and I know they typed it beforehand. Only letter that is in our alphabet that is not in any U.S. state name. All right, Christy and Miss Judy both have it in there. It is the letter Q. And You might have been guessing a couple other letters in your head and then trying to figure out what they were or weren't. If you thought J or Z, you were close. Those only appear in New Jersey or Arizona. If you came across B, of course, living in Alabama, B probably didn't come up to any of us because we know that it's in our name. But in Alabama and Nebraska are the only two states that have the letter B in it. California and Florida are the only two states that have the letter F. And X only appears in New Mexico and Texas. But Q doesn't appear in any state. And it's kind of interesting that even if they added some of the extra places that have been considered for statehood, like the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, other places like that, you still would not end up with a letter Q, even in some of the others that have been looked at there. So interesting that the letter Q gets left out. All right. Which of these is a perfect number? Which of these is a perfect number? I should have went ahead and popped that question up while I was talking about the letter Q there. Give people a chance to see it before I ask it. Which of these is a perfect number? Not giving any more context than that. Just which one of these? One of them is. You may be looking at going, I don't know. All right, got one vote for 6, one vote for 7. All right. And the correct answer is, as you might have guessed, people are probably looking at going, well, I guess there's probably some, what's the word I'm looking for? Personal preference involved in this, but there's really not. The term perfect number is a math term that means that the numbers positive divisors, all the numbers positive divisors add up to the number. So 6 would be the perfect number out of this list. They're pretty rare. The first 4 perfect numbers you come to in numbers, I don't know. Numbers need a name like alphabet or something. But anyway, first 4 perfect numbers you come to are 6, 28, 496, and 8128. I'm only going to do the math on the 6. So the positive divisors there being 1, 2, and 3 all add up to 6. So that's why it's considered a perfect number. In case you were wondering. I know in Scripture a lot of times we talk about 7 being the number of perfection, the number of completion. So I thought that might throw some people off there with the number 7 there as well. But yeah, perfect number being that math term. So thought that was kind of a tough one there. I thought it was interesting. I didn't know that until I found that, so I thought that was kind of fun. All right, next question. U.S. presidents. Which of these U.S. presidents didn't earn a 4-year degree? I was having a conversation with someone this week about college and, just kind of that route people take of leaving high school. And do I go to college? Do I not go to college? That sort of thing. Well, if we think back, obviously some of the early presidents didn't have a college to go to, didn't have things of that nature. Some of the early founding fathers even, I guess, were responsible for helping to start some of the schools that we would have today. But once we get to some of these, which of these 4 did not earn a 4-year degree? Anybody know? Not seeing any responses. I guess I have a long delay. Either that or everyone's asking Google. Chrissy's just going to guess. She's not going to ask Google. She's just going to go with her instinct. She's saying Grant. Carol says Benjamin Harrison. All right. I'll go ahead. I'm sure some others are about to pop up as well. But the correct answer is Harry S. Truman. Oops. Hang on. Harry S. Truman is one that didn't earn a 4-year degree. Trying to remember the story here. Harry Truman, of graduated, let's see, let me make sure I got the right information here before I tell you this, because I don't want to tell you wrong. And I did make some notes here so I could explain that answer, and then I forgot. Yes, he was born in 1884. He was the last president not to have earned a college degree, so pretty much from that point on, everyone who became president had gone to college and completed it. Harry Truman graduated high school in 1901, and he enrolled in Spalding's Commercial College. He was going to study bookkeeping, shorthand, and typing, but he didn't finish, and so he didn't get his degree. He ran for office and got an elected judge position, then went into a legislative role there, and became vice president, and then later president. So he was the last president not to get a college degree. I thought that was kind of interesting. All right. Speaking of presidents, which U.S. president fathered a child at the age of 70? It's just one of those interesting facts, I guess. Which U.S. president fathered a child at the age of 70? All right. I shouldn't put the president questions together, because now I'm not sure. Some of these people are guessing one or the other if I didn't see them in time. But still having trouble navigating my computer here. All right. Christy's says another guess. She's just gonna guess Tyler. Carol's going with John Quincy Adams. Miss Judy, I believe, is going with John Tyler. She put C in. I think that's from this question. Make sure I'm keeping up with the right one. And the correct answer is John Tyler. He actually had 15 children, which is more than any other president. He had 8 children with his first wife. After she passed away, he remarried, and he had 7 more children with his second wife. So that's a lot of children. I can't imagine. Children can wear you out, and I can only imagine trying to keep up with 15. So that's a lot of children there. So anyway, I thought you might find that interesting. Next question. What fruit did many people think was poisonous until 1820? Which fruit did many people think was poisonous until 1820? Was it strawberries, bananas, tomatoes, or olives? Which fruit did people think was poisonous until 1820? Hope I'm not crunching in the mic. I thought I'd steal a quick chip there while everyone was putting their guesses in. Or maybe they're not guesses. Maybe you know that one. All right, I got somebody going with, Carol's going with tomatoes. Christy's going with strawberries. I bet you did that just because you found the emoji for that, didn't you? Christy's like, I'm going to guess for whichever one I can find the emoji for. All right. Maybe some more answers coming in. I apologize if I don't see your answer. Okay, looks like Miss Judy's going with tomatoes. And Christy's giving me a stare down. Correct answer is tomatoes. For those of you that went with tomatoes, that is correct. The thing I was looking at said that's largely, the reason people thought they were poisonous was largely due to a book by a man named John Gerard. He wrote a book in 1597 called The General History of Plants. They had more letters in it than that, but that's how it was pronounced back when you had all those extra letters in English language. And so because of that book, a lot of Great Britain and also a lot of people that came over to the U.S. Believe that eating tomatoes could be deadly. There is a toxin in tomatoes called tomatine, and it is toxic, but it's in such a small amount there that it's not toxic to humans. or I don't know if that's the right terminology or whatever, but it's not. It won't do anything to us. I guess it is a toxic chemical, but the amount you get from tomatoes is, I guess, unimportant to humans. And the myth carried on. They say until about 1820, when a man named Robert Johnson went and sat in front of a New Jersey courthouse with a large basket of tomatoes and ate the whole basket right in front of people to show them that tomatoes are in fact safe to eat. I am so glad he did, because even though we're in the middle of winter, I'm already looking forward to tomato sandwiches once the tomatoes start coming back in season. So I can't imagine worrying about my tomato sandwich and not being able to eat it. So anyway, that was the answer there. All right, sea urchins. Those interesting little things you see underwater when you go snorkeling, or might step on if you're wading out into the water in the ocean. They get their name from what non-aquatic animal? From a mole, hedgehog, echidna? I don't even know how to say that word. Or shrew. I actually tried to say it a couple times earlier. I should have looked it up on how to pronounce it. I'm assuming it's echidna. Echidna? Anyway, A, B, C, or D. Which one of those did the sea urchin get their name from? I'm still not seeing any more comments on Facebook, so begin to wonder if I've lost connection here. All right, Miss Judy's going with hedgehog. Christy's going with hedgehog again because she found an emoji for it. I had no idea there was a hedgehog emoji. I will admit that. I would never have been able to find that. Christy is the emoji aficionado. She can find an emoji for anything. Me, I'm lucky to find the right smiley face that's not actually a frowny face or something, because I can't see them that well. So, all right, I wouldn't give this answer. I'm waiting for answers here, and I may not see them in time anyway. Hedgehog is correct. Can you see the resemblance there, the sea urchin to the hedgehog? You may wonder, well, how'd they get their name from the hedgehog? That's a little bit unusual. Oh, Carol, Google said porcupine. Interesting. But the hedgehog was called an urchin up until the 1400s. That was their name up to that point, and then they became called hedgehogs. Urchin was a Middle English word, urchin. And Miss Judy looked it up too. Okay, so yeah, it'd be interesting to see that on the porcupine, if maybe they're related. Maybe they were called porcupines may be called urchins as well, until they distinguish between a porcupine and a hedgehog. I don't know. So all right, next question. What's the most common street name in the U.S.? Most common street name in the U.S. There's an organization that looks and researches towns and things of that nature. I'll give you their name here in a moment, and or the National League of Cities. Go ahead and call that out. National League of Cities, so they've kind of compiled data from all these different cities. What do you think is the most common street name? Is it First, Second, Third, or Main? First Street, Second Street, Third Street, or Main Street? Carol's going to go with Maine. Christy's going with Maine. All right. And I'll go ahead and give the answer, because I'm guessing I'm not seeing some of the responses that are probably coming in. Second is actually first. So Second Street, and this makes no sense to me. Second Street is the most common street name in the country. Third Street is the second most common, and First Street is third place. That's confusing, isn't it? And it says, as common as it might be, Main Street is actually down at seventh most common street name. So even though it seems like every town has a Main Street, it's actually the seventh most common. So I can't figure out. My theory here is they didn't give a reason for why Second is the most common street name, and yeah, well, Main Street should be the most common. My guess is that a lot of cities that use that numbering system, which is probably why the numbers end up being among those top ones, because you have First Street, Second Street, Third Street, and you do avenues the other way, is that a lot of times that middle street that would normally be First Street sometimes has a different name. It might be Chuck Allen Boulevard or something, and then you start numbering off of that. That's my theory, at least. That's why you don't have First as being the most common, because sometimes they start off that numbering system, and First Street then becomes named after someone or something. Even though everybody just kind of knows that's First Street, it's not called First Street. But I could be way off on that. But yeah, Second is the first place name. Third is the second place name. First is the third place name. First is the third place name. So anyway, I mentioned that's confusing. A lot of these questions can be confusing, can't they? Well, that's what we're going to talk about tonight real quick as we get into the introduction to Proverbs is, how do we deal with confusion? Things can be so complicated sometimes, so difficult to decide on. Maybe some of these questions, weren't all that important information to know. But, some of you could have sat there and go, well, maybe it was this, maybe it's that. And so that's what Proverbs is about, making wise choices. It's about wisdom. And so a couple of things we're going to do an introduction today, really talk just kind of about the overview of it and who wrote it. Does anybody know who wrote the book of Proverbs? Anybody want to put that into the answer, into the chat if you know the answer to that one? I find it interesting too that when we go through these questions, a lot of times, what do? We ask something. We oftentimes Google, but we look something up. So we have a question about that. We go, let me look that up. I was talking with Hunter, my oldest son, today, and I had a football game on TV, and it just kind of prompted me to go, who won the Super Bowl last year? Who played in the Super Bowl? And we were both kind of thinking, well, I don't remember who it was. And actually had to pull out our phones and look at it. So that's kind of what we do when we encounter something now. Is we pull out our phone and we search for it. We look for answers. And that's kind of how life is sometimes. We're often looking for answers. And where we go for answers is an important thing. Miss Judy gave an answer on the YouTube side. You're right. King Solomon is who we credit with writing the Proverbs. You could have been correct if you'd written King Solomon, Agur, and King Lemuel if you wanted to. All of those would have been acceptable answers. We'll talk a little bit about each one of those. Just one second, my computer's messing up on me again. All right. Hopefully you can see me. I had a brief moment of having to get around to my laptop there. But King Solomon, Agur, and King Lemuel are all mentioned as authoring some of these. King Solution. I like that. Autocorrect. King Solution. Sounds like a product you would buy on TV. You can get it now for $19.99 and we'll double your offer. King Solution. I love autocorrect. But we don't know anything really about Agur. I showed the verses here that refer to the different people. Proverbs 30 starts with the words of Agur, the son of Jakeh. Even the prophecy, the man spake unto Ithiel, even unto Ithiel and Ukal. Those are all names that we don't know much about at all. The name there means gatherer, so it might just be referring to someone who gathered together this bit of wisdom, this prophecy as it's mentioned there. But Proverbs 31 is where we see Lemuel. The word there it says the words of King Lemuel, the prophecy that his mother taught him. We don't know anything about King Lemuel either. Lemuel means devoted to the Lord. A lot of people believe that phrase, that title there is just simply referring back to Solomon as well. So obviously Solomon compiled this book, wrote most of these. And that's why we credit him as being the author. He did mention in a couple of these other names, so I guess we don't really know much about Agur, and we were kind of assuming Lemuel is probably another name for Solomon. You may remember that the Lord gave Solomon the name Jedediah. I'm drawing a blank on exactly what that name means at the moment, but something like, let's see, Lemuel means dedicated to the Lord. Jedediah meant, I can't remember. Something about set apart to the Lord, something very similar to that as well. It says the prophecy that his mother taught him. So some scholars believe that that particular proverb, Proverbs 31, which is well known, has the words about finding a virtuous woman. Some people believe that may have been something that Solomon's mother taught him, that Bathsheba would have shared with him, and that maybe Lemuel was the name she had for him. But we don't know a whole lot about that. A lot of speculation, I guess, in that place. But Solomon is the one that compiled these. It starts off right in the very first chapter, the Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel. And some people also like to point out that as you go through the Psalms, as you go through the Proverbs, you'll see the tense change. So sometimes it's in the first person, sometimes second, sometimes third. Some people speculate that maybe that was Solomon's way of splitting out some of the things that maybe were his own proverbs, his own bit of wisdom, versus things that maybe he was taught by other people, versus things that he saw other people sharing. We don't know. All we know is that because of the way we have the scripture here, that the Holy Spirit had him gather these together, and so that's why I refer to them as the Proverbs of Solomon. And very specifically David's son, who was the king, that particular Solomon, and he was the one that gathered them all together. I find it interesting that Solomon would be the one to write this, because as we look at Scripture, we're going to look at 1 Kings 3 tonight, and just kind of look at who Solomon was and why he was so qualified to write this. 1 Kings 3 verse 5 says, "In Gibeon the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and God said, ask what I shall give thee. And Solomon said, Thou hast showed unto thy servant David my father great mercy, according as he walked before thee in truth, in righteousness and in uprightness of heart with thee. And thou hast kept for him this great kindness, that thou hast given him a son to sit on his throne, as it is this day. And now, O Lord my God, thou hast made thy servant king instead of David my father, and I am but a little child, I know not how to go out or come in." We'll pause there for a moment. There's still some more verses to come. But notice what's happening here. God comes to Solomon and says, what do you want me to do for you? What do you ask me for something? Throughout the New Testament, God tells us that he wants us to ask him things. He wants us to call out to him and ask. And that's what he's saying here to Solomon. He's saying, ask. And notice what Solomon does. Solomon could have gone with anything. He could have said, well, I want my kingdom to be a long kingdom. I want to reign for a really long time. Or I want to expand the kingdom to have even more territory. I want more riches. Or I want, whatever it is. He could have come up with all kinds of things. But what does he say? He says, God, I know that you really blessed my father, David, that I got to get these glasses off. I can see my picture right there on the middle of the screen. That was driving me crazy every time my glasses kind of moved around. But he says, you really blessed my father, David. You gave him the throne. And then you chose me to be his replacement, to be the one that sits here afterwards. And he says, I don't have enough wisdom to know. I don't have enough knowledge to be able to do this. He says, you've made me king, but I'm not qualified to be king. You ever get those moments where you feel like, God, I don't know if I can handle this situation. I don't know if I'm up for this. I remember first time we brought a child home, when we brought Hunter home from the hospital, I had that feeling at that moment. Like, what am I doing? I don't know how to do this. You have that feeling of, I can't do this, not on my own. And that's what Solomon is saying. He's saying, God, I'm now the king of this nation of yours, this nation that you've put together, and I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to lead them. He says, and thy servant is in the midst of thy people, which thou hast chosen, a great people that cannot be numbered nor counted for multitude. Give therefore thy servant an understanding heart to judge thy people, that I may discern between good and bad. For who is able to judge this, thy so great a people? And the speech pleased the Lord that Solomon had asked this thing. Solomon says, Lord, if you'll just help me know how to be a good king for your people. He was more concerned and interested about being able to do the task God had given him, than he was about all the other things that we might think of when you think about somebody telling you ask for whatever you want. And that was his concern. For us, if we're going to seek wisdom, if we're going to look at how to make good choices, we're going to have to make sure that our focus is on, okay, God, I want to be able to do what you want me to do. That'll drive a lot of good decisions if we make things focus more on what does God want than what do we want. Verse 11 says, and God said unto him, because thou hast asked this thing, hast not asked that for thyself long life, neither hast thou asked riches for thyself, nor hast asked the life of thine enemies, but hast asked for thyself understanding to discern judgment. It says, behold, I have done according to thy words. Lo, I have given thee a wise and understanding heart, so there was none like thee before thee, neither after thee shall any arise like unto thee. And I have also given thee that which thou hast not asked, both riches and honor, so there shall not be any among the kings like unto thee all thy days. And if thou wilt walk in my ways, to keep my statutes and my commandments, as thy father David did walk, then I will lengthen thy days. And Solomon awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And he came to Jerusalem, and stood before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and offered up burnt offerings, and offered peace offerings, and made a feast to all his servants. So here we have this experience that Solomon had, where God said, what do you want? What are you going to ask for? What do you want me to do for you? And because of Solomon asking for the right thing, because Solomon said, I want to focus on what you have for me, to give me the ability to do what you want me to do, God said, you know what? I'm going to give you that, and I'm going to give you all these other things as well. And we know that during Solomon's time, the nation of Israel was a mighty world power, that people came from far away to see the nation of Israel. The temple was adorned in gold, and it was a beautiful thing. Solomon was a wealthy king. He was known throughout all the region, and as what God told him there, that no one would be greater than him in terms of kings in that area and during his lifetime. So he was. And we know that in Matthew, when Jesus is speaking, he's talking about the fact that he's here. He makes reference to the fact that the Queen of Sheba, even coming up to see Solomon, and because of his wisdom and all of his glory and the riches and wealth. And he refers to that story of her coming to see him as, people came to see Solomon, and he's saying, even one greater than Solomon is here, and yet no one is paying attention, was what he was saying. But he was referring there to Solomon and the impact he had on the world around him because of this incident with God. And so as we look at Psalms, remember who it is that wrote it. One sad thing about Solomon is that he did fall away. Notice at the end, God said, how long your kingdom lasts depends on your obedience. How long the kingdom lasts depends on how long you stay with this kind of an attitude, with this kind of a heart for me. Unfortunately, Solomon ended up marrying a lot of wives that were not Jewish, and they had their own gods. And he started, building them temples to their gods, and started getting into idolatry and things of that nature. And because of that, his kingdom ended up being split after his death. That's why we end up with a northern kingdom and a southern kingdom. Throughout the rest of the scripture there, you'll see everything divided into Israel and Judah, northern kingdom, southern kingdom, all because he didn't obey. And as we'll go through it, we'll look at a lot of the Proverbs here. They're all about wisdom and finding out what to do. But even wisdom is no good if we're not obedient. Wisdom is of no use if we're not focusing it on what does God want. And really the key verse, in my opinion, in the book of Proverbs is found in verse 15. I'm sorry, I said Proverbs 1:7, but it's not. Proverbs 1:15 is what that should say. Okay, now I messed up on the 15. That is verse 7. Sometimes I make my slides and I mess myself up here. That is Proverbs 1:7, so that 15 should be a 7. But right there in the first chapter of Proverbs, it says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. And, that's the whole point of it. If we want to know wisdom, if we want to know the right things to do, it's about lining our life up with God and saying, okay, God, I need you to give me guidance. I need you to give me direction. I want this guidance and direction focused on what you have for me. It all starts with having a proper view of who God is. So we'll see that more as we go into the study of Proverbs. We're going to look at several sections of topics that are covered in the Proverbs, and they're covered in multiple places. So we'll kind of look at several verses from various places in the book each time, because a lot of those topics are covered in multiple times. But each one of those all comes back to the same thing of knowing what the right thing is to do by putting our emphasis on what does God have for me. So I hope this week is a week of that. I hope it's a week of pursuing God and saying, okay, God, what do you want me to do? I'm willing to do it, and I know you're going to give me the ability to do whatever it is you ask me to do. We're already running way past time. I'm shooting for 30 minutes on these things each time, and I never quite make that. But hopefully you had fun with the game. And hopefully this is something you can think about this week as you go through the week, is pursuing the knowledge and the wisdom that God provides. And in that idea of what the choice that Solomon had there is really a choice that we have every day. Do we want to seek things that are more common, or do we want to seek what God has for us? Hope you have a great week. Hope if I could do anything for you, please don't hesitate to reach out to me and you can contact me via message, give me a phone call. I love you all, and we'll talk to you soon.